Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the What's Halperning podcast. We took a little break. We are back, and we're back with a vengeance here. One of my best friends in the world is joining us, Brannon Bartley. Brannon is just a great dude. He and I have become friends through business. He's a loan officer and a branch manager with Citywide Home Loans. But over the last 6-7 years, we've become very, very good friends. And Brannon, it's a pleasure to have you, man. It's great to be here. You know, I always say when I introduce you, and I always tell people if they're going to call you and talk to you on the phone, if I tell clients, I'm like, man, Brannon's one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. And you can like almost hear him smiling through the phone. When you talk and you get on and you get in your element, it's so genuine, man. So thank you so much for being here with me.
You got it. This is great, Trevor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
First podcast ever. So
really? All right, here we go. Let's do it.
This is awesome.
So, you know, one of the things that you and I have developed over the years is that steady ritual. Once a month, you and I get together and have happy hour. Mm-hmm. And I literally don't do that with anyone else. Just you. Like, you and I have such a good connection personally. We have such a good connection professionally. You know, we always say it like when we're done, it's like, dude, good hang.
Right.
Good
hang.
You know, we always get something, you know, from each other, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, you know, new knowledge. We've just have developed such a good connection and friendship over the last, you know, gosh, how many years have we known each other?
It's got to be 6 or 7 years, I'm guessing. Yeah.
6 or 7. How long have you been in the business? How long have you been a loan officer?
Sure. So I started in the business in 2005. I was in sports marketing before that, golf sponsorships, went to NASCAR, got laid off. Best thing that ever happened to me. Best thing that ever happened to me.
You just got bored of that.
Just went into the full circle. So what happened was they sold the company and moved it to North Carolina. And then I was without a job, collecting unemployment, same unemployment rate it was back then in 2004 as it is today, which is kind of interesting.
Huh.
No dollar cost averaging there for
the unemployed.
For the unemployed.
Huh.
Yikes. But what happened was I actually got a real estate license, and I think I have the longest inactive real estate license because I've never hung the license since I got it in 2004.
You maintain it? And
I still have it 24 hours a So I know the Arizona purchase contract, even though I've never put my name on one.
No, you don't. You pretend to know it just because you're licensed.
Yeah, you'll get doxxed there 3 days prior to close.
Line 230. Yeah, right. You'll get doxxed same day.
Same day.
Don't worry, we get table for it.
They're coming. Notary's on its way. But so then I had a friend who was a realtor at the time and said, you should get into the mortgage business. And I've been I was at People's Mortgage for 5-6 years, and which Legacy Home Mortgage was a broker that I started with. We merged into People's, and then Citywide since 2010. So, and
at 2010, did you get your own branch at that point, or did you join Citywide and then become a branch manager?
We were the first branch in Arizona. There were 4 branch managers, and it got a little bit too many cooks in the kitchen.
4-headed monster. Yeah. That wouldn't work well.
So Citywide has been a great company, and we had the chance to be the first one in Arizona. So then we split apart, and 2 people went and started their own branch, and we started our other branch. And both of us are still here and have successful branches for Citywide. So it's been great.
That's crazy. I mean, I think that's a testament to one, who you guys are and who Citywide is, because, you know, one of the games, and honestly, it's any vertical that I've ever been a part of, whether it was when I was a health insurance broker, whether it was when I was working for a management consulting firm, my background in the law, real estate, insurance, you know, every vertical that I've ever been in, there's a dance. It's like, oh, there's a golden ring somewhere, and you go and you move companies. But for you to have gotten your branch and hung out at Citywide, I think it says a lot about who you are and about what the company is. Otherwise, you would have chased something else.
Well, everyone's got good rates. Everyone's got great service. It's really about the people that work there. And I've been lucky to have such a good support team at the branch that's been there years. And our corporate office, our processing, our underwriting, they will go head over heels and help out not only me, but our clients as well. So it's the people that really make it there.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, like in your industry as a loan officer, what does it mean to be a branch manager? What does it give you? Does it give you a certain level of control? Does it give you you hear it all the time. Oh, this is my branch, or I'm a branch manager. But I don't think people in and out. Well, I'm sure in the industry, but like on my side of it, the real estate side of it, I don't necessarily understand what it means. And I've learned it over the years with you, but like, I still don't know all the ins and the outs. So like, to be a branch manager versus like a loan officer under you at a branch, what does it mean to be the branch manager?
So a lot of it's just helping people get their business up and running, managing the office, taking care of different things that are happening with regards to loans for other loan officers, giving them ideas on, okay, here's how you can help grow your business. Here's some little nuances we can do. Here's a client experience program. Let's put that together. Just kind of oversee the branch operation and be a liaison also to the corporate office. If someone has a problem with the loan, then they might come to me to help them out, and then connect with the corporate office to get it resolved.
And then, so as a branch manager too, you also get a certain amount of financial leeway, right? To make certain things work, but also with the loan officers under you, it kind of works so that you get a little bit, like, you're not just giving away free help, right? You're giving advice and you're helping them grow their business. But when they close deals, the branch earns some, and then in return, you earn some as well.
Well, I always have to say, there's, people say, okay, we charge $14.95 for processing and underwriting, but we have processors, they have income, they have healthcare, we have underwriters, and that's just whether it's a $100,000 loan or a $600,000 loan, it's $14.95. Got to keep the lights on,
right?
So you got to keep the beverage center stocked.
Yeah, got to keep the coffee flowing,
got to keep the coffee flowing, premium coffee,
premium, that low grade stuff.
Yeah. So it's but we do what's called a PE, or price exception. So let's say we need to do a lender credit for, let's just call it $500 to help with the appraisal for somebody. Our loan officers can give a certain amount of a price exception, and then over a certain amount, it comes to me. And then I talk to the corporate office and make sure that, okay, is this loan still profitable? Because we're not a nonprofit business.
Right.
Got to make some money.
Right. Absolutely. I think one of the things that you and I have always connected on, really from the beginning, you and I were introduced to each other by mutual friends and clients.
Charity, yeah.
Yeah. And so that the introduction, the relationship introduction got us going. And then we both quickly realized that we're both relationship guys. And that's how we run our business. You are a Buffini guy. You make sure that you're top of mind and relationship stuff. What does that mean? What is the importance of cultivating, creating, and maintaining relationships to you and your business?
It's everything. I mean, you hear all the time on radio and advertisements, the iBuyers, the Open Doors, the Zillows, they're 0.5% of the market. I mean, it's unbelievable. Relationships are what people want. And yeah, you're going to have people that might say, okay, I'm going to go here for $500 less, but it's just doing the little things and being friend. When I got married, I had clients at my wedding. I didn't know them before I was clients. They're not going to the CEO of Zillow's wedding.
It'd be a bash,
but,
I'm sure.
But that's what, there's always going to be a market for that. And just people want, it's like when you go to a restaurant, why do we always go to Moto?
Well, we know what we're getting there.
We know what we're getting.
We like the banter.
Yep.
Right. The banter with the owner is always fun. It's always fun seeing you get beat up by him.
A little bit beat up. We've done a few deals from people.
We really have. Yeah. Two that I
Yeah.
can think of, maybe even more.
And we text them, we know them, they, go see them. But I go there because of the relationship.
Right. We could go get a cheaper beer somewhere.
Right.
But we don't, because we know what we're getting. It's a relationship thing. We always have good banter and conversation there with each other and with the people around there.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah. I think, for me, the relationship side of it, and that's where you and I, it's like, there's a really good kind of simpatico, if we see activity with one of our mutual clients, we're always communicating about it. What can we do? How can we get this over the hump? The strategy portion of it is one of the other things that I've always appreciated about you. And that's your longevity in the business, your status as a top producing loan officer and as a branch manager gives you a wealth of knowledge. And it's like these things, and that's what I always tell clients when I introduce them to multiple loan officers, which I do, and you and my other lender partners hate it. But what I always tell them is this is a partnership. It's as important with the lender relationship as anything to develop a partnership. So calling multiples and making sure that you're aligning on one, I understand what this person is telling me. It's not just, Greek or, high finance. It's actually, okay, I can make sense of the dollars and cents. And then two, make sure that you like the personality across the aisle, because there's a lot of that has to intermingle from a consumer standpoint. But where you and I really excel is, and we do this all the time, it doesn't matter whether it's we've got a $1.6 million deal going right now, and we have $150,000 deal together right now.
Right.
And literally doesn't matter. We're strategizing on both of them. And we're making sure that our clients' best interests are in front of us. And I think that mutual, that reciprocation, that there's a machine behind both of our businesses, right? There's process orientation. And we're doing the same thing with every client every time, whether it's 1.6 or 160, sure. It doesn't matter. But also then being able to text or being able to call and say, hey man, what about this? Did you hear from that? What about that? Hey, I see an issue coming up here. How can we put our heads together? I mean, to me, that's so important in any relationship. And it's one of the reasons why we have maintained such a good professional relationship, is being able to communicate effectively and then develop a strategy, develop tactics, and work through them from there.
Right. We follow through. I mean, if we say we're going to do something, we do it. And I know I could lean on you for things that might come up that say, hey, have you seen this before? I mean, we've been in the business a long time. I've been doing this 15 years. There's things this week I see that are just never seen before. But you figure it out, you get the answers where it doesn't just go into some abyss.
It's funny because you mentioned that we figured out, we call each other even on deals that we don't have together. Yeah. Hey man, have you seen this? Have you seen that? How about this? And I think it's so instructive of, one of the things that I love about you is if I introduce someone to you, and there was a situation, it was actually the one of the developers of this building. I introduced you guys to each other, and he was working on a tricky finance deal. And I was like, you got to call Brandon. And I saw him again, 3, 4, 5 days later.
Right.
And the way he described it, he's like, man, I really like that guy. He's like, I called him. I told him, he's like, okay, all right. This is, an interesting situation. And he's like, and then 2 days later, he calls me back, goes, okay, I've been thinking about it. And blah, blah, blah. And that's what you do. It's it's almost a puzzle for you.
Sure.
It's in front of you, and you're figuring it out piece by piece and going and asking the right people and leveraging your relationships and your knowledge base to figure it all out, instead of just oh, it's just a number, or it's just a loan coming in. It's just something on the board. No, you're getting creative and figuring it out and following through and making sure that even if, being a second set of eyes, there've been plenty of times where you've been no, I'm looking at your loan scenario. I can't do that.
I'm going to treat you like family. Good. If I can't do it and you got a better deal somewhere else, sometimes with builders, sometimes you just never know. Do that. Go with them. I would tell my own family to do that. But sometimes we're going to be the better fit. But it's funny, you were talking about relationships. Is on the way here, I had a client who I did a deal with about 6 months ago, and he's an executive with a media company. And he calls me and I'm like, okay, what does he want to talk about? Refinancing? What's going on here?
Yeah, where's the business?
He's so I know... Do you know anyone that needs, we're looking for a paralegal. I'm like, paralegal? Well, that's interesting. So it was kind of cool that here's a past client, treated him great. He's now reaching out to me to reach out to my network to see if I could find somebody that would be a paralegal fit for his company.
That's so interesting. So it essentially, you're viewed as a value center, and you're viewed as someone who can deliver value outside of lending. The loan.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of the core tenets of being a relationship person. And it's one of the core reasons why I wanted to get into a business where I knew that I could continue to create and evolve relationships, where I knew that I could connect people, because I had always been a connector in any of the businesses that I was involved with, any line of business. It was you and you should know each other.
Yes.
I don't know what's going to come out of it, but I think you guys should know each other. And oftentimes those would create good relationships, but there was no way for me to if I was derived as providing value, there was no real way for me to get that value returned. And now it's hey, you look at a guy like you and you look at a guy like me, we're more multifaceted than just putting on, buckling my realtor pin to my lapel, and you putting on your coat and going into your loan officer den and doing loans. Like
den, I don't work in a den.
I know. I just figured I didn't know what to call it.
We have lights and windows.
It's an office. It's no casa, but
no, it does smell nice in here.
Yeah. Oh, the scent is one of the many aspects. It's a full-fledged feel when you come here to casa. Nice. Yeah. Oh man, so when you're working with clients, like, getting down to kind of brass tacks of the business, like when that first phone call comes through, what are some of the things that you go through? What's important for the consumer to know? Like I always tell people, first step is to talk to an agent, right? Selfishly, right? But getting out of the self-important aspect of that, the idea is that by calling me, I can lay out a strategy. Hey, here's the process. Step one was calling me. Step two is leveraging my relationships, right? Let's connect you with loan officers. Let's get you with the right person to make sure that you can come back to me with a number. I don't need to know your income. I don't need to know your debt. Sure. I don't need to know any of your financial stuff. So I'm going to hand you off to Brannon. He's going to come back and say, hey, they can buy at 600. They can buy at 150. They can buy at 1.5, whatever it is. And then once we have that, we know we're good to go. But that handoff, from the time I hand them off, like I don't necessarily know what your process is. What's important for people when they're going to get a home loan? I know that first step, and even for me, when I went to seek my own loans, that was the scariest step. Like it's, my gosh, there's skeletons in the closet, or what am I really going to qualify for? Gosh,
Sure.
What is it? Is this going to be painful? Right. So what is important for the consumer to know when they're calling a loan officer?
Right. Well, marketing makes it so, you think you literally can just go pick up a mortgage down at the grocery store and it's over and they're going to give you $400,000. It doesn't work that way. I mean, so when a client calls, I always ask them, tell me a little bit about what you're looking to do and get a story and kind of listen, because when you hear what their plan is, then you can kind of backwards into what their best strategy should be. So one thing first, with all the different COVID rules that have happened over the last year and a half, do you have a job? It's important. Well, great. I have a job, but if you're self-employed, there's a different set of rules being self-employed. You have to show 2 years of income. Well, what happens if you have a write-off and a note due and payable on an office building in less than a year? Well, that goes into different things. So it's gathering information, down payment. And a big misconception is, how much down do you really need? Technically, you only need 3% down on a conventional loan. A lot of people don't know that. So someone might have a problem getting down payment funds, need help from a family member for a gift. So there's a lot of different strategies for that.
So the conventional loan.
Yep.
You said 3% down, and that's for that the loan limit in Maricopa County for conventional is what?
$548,250.
That's such a random number.
Yeah, every year it changes
Right.
based on the average sales price, and you just never know what it's going to be. But typically, it's gone up the last few years because obviously, look at the market in Maricopa County.
What are we looking at for jumbo loans? What 10% down, 15%?
You can
20?
do 10%, or a lot of people, you can do what's called an 80-10-10. Put 10% down, have a first mortgage of the lower rates on the conventional, and then have a smaller second. Because a lot of people will qualify, sell a house, and then pay off their second mortgage or do what's called a recast because they want to sell their property, get a lower payment, and so they'll put a big chunk. Usually you have to put $10,000 or more to recast your loan.
Okay.
So
through that process, that information gathering, what else are you looking for? Like what pitfalls? What are some big things that you see consistently come up?
I want to know where you're buying. Are you buying a manufactured home? Are you buying a condo? Are you buying a townhome, single family? How quick are you going to close? Do you have another property? So that's big too, because if you have another property, well, are you going to sell it prior to closing, or are you going to try to sell it after closing? If you're going to sell it after, do you qualify for both mortgage payments? So I'd say income consistency is number one with job and assets. And then obviously credit scores, but people are actually pretty good with their credit. You pay your bills, you could fix your credit in 3 to 6 months. And that's one thing that we do, is help people fix their credit and don't charge them $1 for it.
That's awesome. Just enable them to do.
Enable to do it and give them advice. Do this, this, and this. Open this secured card. Pay this off. Try to settle for less on your collection, perhaps, and then let's revisit in 90 days.
Cool.
Because the last thing you want to do is show them property and they don't qualify.
Well, and that's it. And that's why the first step for me, or step two. First step
Right.
is let's have a conversation. Second step is I hand them off to a lender because we won't show homes unless someone is proven.
Have you
their
ever
ability to
gotten
do it.
burned?
Probably early in my career.
Yeah.
But even then, I had the fortune of being at like an old school, like, top producing office for Coldwell Banker, the Biltmore PV office.
Mhm.
And there were just a bunch of old pros in there. So the education I got there was like, yeah, if they haven't proven their financial ability to do it, don't go. And I still see a lot of agents do it, right? I mean, listen, if you're struggling, if you're hungry, if you haven't had a deal in a while, if you're new to the biz, like you just want to get out, you just want to get
solve
a
all
deal,
problems, more
right?
leads, more choice.
More leads, right?
Right.
And so you chase things. And if someone calls, I mean, it's so funny to this day when I talk to this client, he brings this up. One of the first deals I ever did, I was sitting in the Coldwell Banker office and we had what was called floor time, where you could sign up every month. Everyone got to sign up for, I think it was three-hour slots a month, where if that front desk phone rang, they would deliver it to the agent on duty. And so it was like, hey, they're driving by a sign, they pick it up, it runs to the office. The receptionist looks at okay, Trevor's on duty. Send it to me. And it was a couple that was visiting from San Diego and deciding that they wanted to relocate from San Diego. And it was 2011, 2012. There's still some short sales pushing through. Things were moving really rapidly. Our market was moving really rapidly. And they called and were like, hey man, we're in front of a house. And we're here for the weekend. We'd love to look at some places. You think you could come out and show us this place right now? And I started going through the questions that I had been taught to ask. And one of them was, are you pre-qualified?
Right.
And the other one was, how quickly are you planning on doing this? And, the pre-qual answer that he gave me was nah, I haven't done that yet, but, I'll qualify, no problem. Then it was like, okay, well, how quickly are you planning on doing this? I don't know, 3, 4, 5 months. We're just kind of figuring it out. And I said, hey, listen, I'd love to show you the house, but it's not going to be a good use of your time or mine right now. If I jump out there and leave what I'm doing to go show you a home and you're not ready, I'm like, the home's not going to be available in 3, 4, 5 months when you're back. And I just don't know whether you
That's
can
the
do
funny
it.
thing. It doesn't cost $1 to get pre-approved.
It
You
doesn't.
run your credit, but you could run your credit a couple times. Just don't go buy a car or a boat or something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. Washer, dryer, all that
But
stuff.
I hear it all the time. Someone wants to make an offer on a house, and then all of a sudden they didn't get pre-approved.
Yep.
They lost the house because they weren't prepared.
They weren't
you gotta
ready.
Be prepared.
You have to be ready. And so even then, as like a very, wet behind the ears agent, I said no to that guy. And he was pissed. I mean, he literally was like, whoa, kind of got grumbly. And I stood my ground. And I was like, I'm sorry. Just, I'm sure you can find agents that'll jump out there without knowing whether you can do it.
Right.
But like, is that really the type of agent you want to work with? Someone that'll drop something to go chase something they don't know is real. And we hung up. It wasn't like a bang, The next day he called me back and he goes, anyone that would say no to me right off the bat is a guy that I want working for me. And he's like, I'm going to get pre-qualified. He's like, let's do this.
Who did the deal?
I don't know, man.
I mean, come on.
It might've been you on it. No, that was right in the beginning. I didn't know you. I know who it was. They shall remain nameless. We'll protect the innocent. But literally that guy called me back and is like, I was pissed. And then I thought about it and I was like, hey, if this guy's willing to say no, like if he's willing to say no to someone who is saying that they're real, that guy will say no to other agents. Like
Reintroducing people to the market is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
In real estate and lending, I think.
Yeah. Reintroducing and knowing what that lockstep is. There are a lot of people out there right now that, information is out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be sitting at your computer. You can be on realtor.com and Zillow and all of these, sites where you don't need an affiliation with an agent, and you can click on the want to see it. You can click on the like, let's go, or you see an open house and you show up, or you see a sign and you call, or you see something on realtor.com and you call the listing agent. In this marketplace, what I tell people, and when they call me, if they call one of my signs and I just activated it or it's been on for a weekend, like I probably have 3, 4, 5, 6 offers. And then they call me and they go, hey, can we go look at this place? And my first question is, well, do you have an agent? Well, no. Okay, are you pre-qualified? No, I'll get qualified when it's time. I just tell them no. No, sorry.
Good for you.
I've got 3 offers. Like these people are ready to go to take you from 0 to 100, and then to get you to be able to compete. It's just not, it's not going to work on this deal. If you want to talk about getting yourself positioned so you can strike when you really want, I'm happy to have that conversation, but I won't get out there and show just a random house without going through this process, because I know literally take them from 0 to 100 to get them ready to offer and be competitive. It's not a 15-minute thing, right? I mean, could they call you and get a pre-qual and blah, blah, blah? But sure, but there are other people knocking at the door. I've got 3 people that are super competing for this with agents, knowing what they're doing, with lenders knowing what they're doing. Like, it's just not worth it. So the information is out there for people to go out and get, as far as like, hey, what sort of house is in this neighborhood? And man, can I go in and look? Sure. But
when you're talking about neighborhoods, I'm kind of curious how it's going to go. So Rocket Mortgages open up their own real estate brokerage. The realtors are going to be based out of Detroit. Mm-hmm. How is that going to go?
I have no idea. I mean, they may rent agents out here. Who knows? I don't know what they're going to do. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Like,
just came out.
Rocket Mortgage is one of those that you and I always like joke about, right? I mean, people look, you hear the commercials. It's like, man, I can get a mortgage like a rocket and be ready to go. And it's like, you just fall into an abyss with some of these companies. And like, that's where, if you have a Rocket Mortgage pre-qual or one of the, I always joke, I make one up. I call it Lobster Mortgage. Like, it's like, what other like names can we come up with for, mortgages, like, Giraffe Mortgage or, Whale Mortgage, or,
and they've done pretty good. I mean,
obviously
years,
but advertising, pushing things through, all that stuff. But, when it comes down to the relationship and the service, that's what makes the difference. And that's where you and I have had the conversations like, hey, sure, you can go shop around, Mr. and Mrs. Client. You can go to Lobster Mortgage, or you can go somewhere like that and get I know, right? I actually think I saw like a ticket broker named like a Lobster Ticket or something. And it's just like Ticket Lobster.
I play golf with a buddy and he just calls me Rocket.
He just calls you Rocket?
I'm like, you're such a jerk.
You've got great friends.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the service versus the actual getting what you're going to get. And, people think they're winning on price, but they're losing on service. And in this marketplace that's so competitive, if I, as a listing agent, get a pre-qual from one of those big banks or one of those online mortgage places, I know if everything is equal between 2 offers and I've got a local mortgage bank that I know and I can pick up the phone and call the mortgage banker, I can call the loan officer and have a chat with them versus an 800 number. If those 2 are the same, when I talk to my clients, I'm going to suggest, hey, go with the one with the local mortgage banker, because they know the contract. They know what their obligations and responsibilities are within the Arizona contract. They care. I've done deals with this group. I know they can get it done. Whereas, once this, let's call it, big bank, once this big bank goes into underwriting, we just call an 800 number and maybe we get someone, maybe we don't. But
will
it's going to be
a
a
big bank
different
call the
person
listing agent and let them know how well qualified?
No.
Have you ever had that?
No.
Huh.
No, I think some local, but like, you can have a local loan officer, one of these big banks, but almost as soon as it goes into like, oh, it's from this loan officer, trying to get you to work with them, to it's in underwriting, it goes away from their control and it goes into underwriting. And so, those guys may call and typically, they have their local number on the pre-qual and I can call them, at least in the beginning, and get a sense of how well qualified they are, how their processes are going to work. I mean, I always ask the questions but it's not the same as having a local loan officer who knows the landscape, because right now, with things being so competitive, if there's any weakness in the offer that you're presenting as a buyer, you may get overlooked. And that's what I tell my clients all the time. I'll have clients that, and good on them for getting out there and being proactive. They will call me and be like, hey man, I got pre-qualified. Like, let's go. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they should check a couple places. There's no harm in that
right.
at all.
The competition is fine. But if they come to me with like big bank, and a lot of times the big bank pre-qual is just like a letter. It's a form letter. It's not an Arizona Association of Realtors pre-qualification form. Right. The difference is that big bank thing says you're qualified at 400,000, pending X, Y, and Z, hope it goes well out there. Whereas the pre-qual, the AAR pre-qual has a bunch of check boxes that I, as a listing agent, want to see. Have you verified their income? Have you seen that they have funds available to close the deal? Have you looked at their taxes? Have you run their credit? Right? Like, I want to see that the loan officer has done that. And every time I call the loan officer that is associated with the pre-qual, I mean, you know, if we have 15 offers and these 10 aren't even competitive, I'm not going to. But let's say those 10 aren't, these 5 are, I'll pick up the phone and call. And sometimes those checkboxes not being checked are super important. Hey, man, you know, I got an offer from your client, you know, Jane Doe, and I see that it doesn't show that you've checked any of the boxes. You haven't verified income, you haven't checked taxes, and you don't know if they have the reserves to get this done. Has anything updated since you've done the pre-qual? No, but they're good for it. Like, no,
I had an agent today that told me they got a pre-approval, but it had the loan officer's name where the buyer should have gone. I'm like, that's
it happens.
Yeah,
it happens.
Like, I bet they're pretty new.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes that happens, and then sometimes you'll get people who just, you know, just like in any profession.
Yeah,
you know, everyone's doing the best they can. But your best may be different than my best.
Sure.
My effort may be different than your effort. My experience may be different than your experience. Everyone's got to start somewhere. So, like, there's nothing wrong with an inexperienced agent or an inexperienced loan officer, as long as they're willing to, like,
they need to ask questions and they need to have some training. Like, they need to have someone they can ask to, or a manager, just somebody to help them out.
Right. And then have the humility to be like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, all right, let me check on that.
Plenty of times I've called you, my bad. Let's fix this.
Let's fix it. And vice versa. Oh, shoot. Boy, we had one this weekend where we were talking and we literally downloaded and said, hey, how do we prevent this from happening again? We got a little over our skis with something. And
that was 100% your fault.
I think that was your fault. I think it's 50-50.
Right.
We'll go join.
Blame the underwriter.
Yeah. Kick the dog, right? But you and I said, okay, you know, what it was is, I asked if you could get an appraisal done in a very tight time frame to protect our mutual client. You're like, you looked and you were like, dude, I that's really tight. I don't know. But you called the appraisal management company. We're like, we can do it. What neither of us took account of was the weekend, which shaved off 2 of our number of compressed days. Right. 2 of our 5 days.
Home of the 3-day appraisal.
Home of the 3-day appraisal, right? And the 14-day close. But we were able to, instead of like getting pissy with each other, instead of pointing the finger at each other, we're like, okay, how do we prevent this? Lesson learned. Both of us need to tuck this one away so that in the future it doesn't happen again. I mean, the idea of asking even for a 5-day appraisal is crazy. And the fact that you got it done in 3 is even crazier. But that's also a testament to your experience, your relationships, the ability of you as a branch manager to call the appraisal management company and work through it. And also a testament to you in the fact that, like, you actually did the work. You know, you didn't just say, nah, I can't do it. One of my least favorite things, my wife will say this too, is she knows this, and my kids know this. Like, you tell me something can't be done, I'm like, really? Like, it becomes a challenge, right? So if someone says, nah, man, you can't do that, like, I want to do it. Or if someone tells me, nah, it can't be done, I'm instantly like, really though? Like, can it? And like, your initial response may be like, when I ask you, hey, can you get this done in 5 days? Your initial response may be like,
what a jerk.
What? Yeah, totally. What are you doing to me, dude?
I'll call your wife.
Yeah. I need a
this
drink,
guy?
right? Yeah. Who does he think he is? But your initial response is like that, like laughing, but pushing back and being like, bro, you're asking a lot, but like, let me check.
I understand why you're doing it too.
Right.
You're doing it because you're protecting your client and their fiduciary.
Right.
So that's what you have to do. I mean, and we'll try. We'll always try.
Right. And
sometimes it's not going to be an answer you like, but we're going to try.
Well, listen, I would rather you do the research up front and come back to me like, can't do it, rather than being like, there's so many people in the world that their initial response when they're faced with any sort of like challenge, uphill battle, something that's outside of the lines of the normal box that they operate in, they'll be like, I don't know, man. I like the hemming and hawing before you actually do the research to know whether you can do what we're trying to do. I just don't like it.
Some of the things you're talking about is kind of my mom was a first grade teacher and taught for 35 years. And all the stuff that you're talking about is, can you try? Will you give your best? Will you be nice to people? Will you have relationships? Like, will you share your crayons with the kid next to you?
Right.
We're doing all that in our business now. I mean, we're just taking it to the next level. Obviously we're not, but a lot of the lessons you learn as a kid, when you got your $10 from grandma, did you write a thank you note to her? Like there's so many different things that you do now that if you were raised right and you learned in school, it crosses over.
Totally. It's golden rule stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Golden
And
rule
it's,
stuff.
and it's funny because JC and I were just talking about this yesterday, and, we were talking about it actually, golden rule stuff. Every day we go through, we have a huddle in the morning, 10 a.m. We go through our board, everyone who's under contract, and then all of our active clients. They may not be under contract, but they're actively working as sellers or buyers. We go through each one of them. In one of the situations we had, I think it's a loan that you're doing too, loan docs are arriving 5, 6, 7 days before close. And I looked at JC, bam. I looked at JC and was like, well, do the clients want to close early?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, you know what? I think they're going out of town right after close and they're not even moving in. So I'm like, don't even bother. And then I was like, no, this is not my decision. Right? When we have information in front of us that should be presented, it's our obligation to present it and allow them to make their decision. And so it's like, whoa, just these little reminders and these little pops of like golden rule stuff. Like I was being interviewed for something a couple of days ago, and it was like, what makes for a really good real estate agent? And the answer is pretty simple. Just putting your clients first. Like this isn't about me. I mean, in the end, I do this business to provide value for my clients, to treat them well, to do right by them, to help them accomplish their goals. And in the end, a little bit of commission falls out of the bottom.
Right.
If I've done my job right.
You can never do it for the money. You can't.
No.
Because people will know if you need the deal more than they need the home or the loan, you can tell that right away. And then you get in a bad situation.
Dude, you know what I call that? You've probably heard me say it. It's commission breath.
Yeah.
I can smell it through the phone. It's like, this agent is like desperate for this, or a loan officer is desperate for it, or a party involved other than the buyer or seller is freaking out about something.
Right.
I've got a cross deal right now, and I cannot understand. The agent has this emotion wrapped up in it that the next time he and he's kind of uncorked on me a couple times. Like, we're not dude, this is a very standard deal. Like, we're not sideways on this. Like, why are you so emotional? And I haven't asked him yet, but like, if there's a situation again that comes up and he responds emotionally, I'm just going to stop and be like, hey, I think I'm missing something on this. You're responding very emotionally to a very standard set of circumstances within the contract. We're not asking for anything outside of it. We're not doing anything outside of the traditional lines of what we should be doing. Yet your responses have been emotional. Am I missing something? Is there something I should be aware of? Because so many times I think lenders, and more so real estate agents, can allow emotion to get in front of their client success. There are agents that I say will go around and they'll throw hand grenades in the room and then jump on it and be like, see that? I just saved you. Or like they'll go around with a can of gas and some matches and light fires and put it out and be like, see, I just put that fire on. It's like, that's not how you prove your worth and your value. You prove your worth and your value by making sure that no flames erupt, by making sure that no hand grenade ends up in the room, that no landmine is thrown out there. And if there are landmines, like, hey, I got a minesweeper. Let's clear the path, right? But I think the idea of wrapping emotion and in putting your set of circumstances as a loan officer or an agent in front of your clients is a surefire way to not last long in this business.
Couldn't agree more. Once you get through 2 years, so number one, it's taking care of your clients. Number two, we do such a good job for our clients, meaning you and me and a lot of people in this, a lot of realtors, a lot of lenders out there. And at what point do you ask them, say, I did such a good job for you. Why don't you refer me to your aunt, your friend? People don't ask, and they just assume that all of a sudden you're going to get a referral from a happy client because you jumped on these grenades or you took this and did that. They might not even be aware of it, but you got to just share with them, hey, you know what? Will you do me a favor? We had a great time. We closed on this house. You got your dream home. Will you keep me in mind if you know anyone looking to buy or sell for the rest of the year?
I love it. And do you actually proactively ask that question?
Yeah. So I have a Post-it note: morning proactive, afternoon reactive.
Oh, interesting.
Just a Post-it note that I look.
And how did you
I have a coach, so Buffini coach. I've been in coaching for 15 years, and it's just the little subtle reminders. And so, you got to do that and ask. And if you ask people for help or something, they're going to help out. You just got to put it top of mind.
It's so interesting. And it's so interesting that I'm so morning proactive, afternoon reactive.
Right.
It's funny when I think about how I manage my business, it's like that. My morning is very rigid. Like when I open my computer, the same 5 tabs open up and I go through each one of those and get those out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's my proactivity. What am I supposed to be doing? What did my staff done? Tracking them, making sure everything is done. What am I supposed to be doing? What clients do I need to contact? And I do all that. And then we show up here and go through our morning huddle,
right?
And go through each client. And then it's like email and the reactive stuff. But in the morning, it's like, get the clutter out of the way, get down to it. What can I do? What's the highest and best use of my time to move my business and my clients forward?
So one thing you taught me when we had our monthly meetings is I have my personal email and then I had a team email with updates. Well, I was on the team email, so I was getting 200, 300 emails a day, and it was completely overwhelming me. And I'm like, and so we came up with a solution. We had a strategy and we figured it out, and it's been amazing because I don't need to know certain updates. I'm going to know them, but I don't need to know them right that minute.
Yeah, you don't need to know them right that minute, and you don't need to be cluttered going through it. That's where I think the value for me of that morning huddle is like, so much of what we discuss.
You meet every day?
Yeah, we meet every day. Yeah. I mean, not on weekends, but Monday through Friday, we meet every day.
10, 15 minutes is all you need.
Yeah. I mean, we blow through and it's like, okay. And then that sets the next layer of proactivity, right? So when we go through clients and it's like, hey, wait, go back to that. What did you say there? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, are they aware of that? Or when is that happening? Or blah, blah, blah. And then we set assignments. Okay, can you email? I'll call. Let me put a note. I'm going to call. So then when we're done with that huddle, now we all have like 2, 3, 4 action items.
Right.
Go right through it. Take that proactive time. And then once we're through all the proactivity, then we can be reactive. And I don't like having a ton of reactive time because I think this business and a Brian Northism is busy versus productive, right? This business, you can be real busy and you can work 80 hours a week if you want. But I find that the most busy people tend to not be very productive. They're literally like, emails are up and their phone chimes or their watch, the
Send
Apple
me a
Watch
daily loan status update.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, you can get so sideways because the information coming at you from different sources is overwhelming. Like I can be, we could step out of this and I may have 25 text messages and have 50 emails. And if I just allowed myself to get into that, like send, receive, I become busy. And then at the end of the day, when I go home and my kids or my wife or both, ask, how was your day? I literally frame it in the busy versus productive response. Actually, it wasn't like a super productive day. Or, man, it was a really good day. Like it was a very productive day. That's how it's never a bad day, right? I mean, this business, as in your business too, it's up and down, and it can be up and down in the same day. Like this business will raise you up and take your knees out within an hour. And so deal went sideways, or I lost one, or I just saw a client sold their house and didn't use me. Like, God, that sucks, but that's not a bad day. That's just a part of the business. So for me, there's never a bad day. I mean, listen, if I have a family tragedy, if something really life circumstance bad happens, okay, cool. But in the business realm, there's no bad days. There's just busy days and there's productive days. And so at the end of the day, when I'm asked that question, I quick frame it like, today was a great day. That means I made a bunch of calls. I moved the needle forward with clients. I introduced them to a property that, man, we're taking action on, solve some riddle that's going on in my business, whether that's a marketing thing, whether that's a personnel thing, whether that's a structure and a process orientation thing. Man, that's productive. But busy is being reactive, right? And of course we need reactive time. Sure. We need to be able to get in there and respond to people when they email, need our direct attention, get back to a voicemail, respond to the text messages. Of course we need to do that. But the less time we can spend on that, and the more time we can spend on the real productive stuff and the proactivity, that's where the value is derived from guys like you and guys like me who have, more than a decade worth of experience in the business, applying, as we call it on our team, focusing on our superpowers. What's your superpower? What's mine? Like, oh, hey, well, I think your superpower is that, mine's this. Like, why am I doing that? And why are you doing that? Like, let's go ahead and rotate.
Hiring somebody was one of the best decisions I ever made. My coach said, you need to hire somebody. And finally I did. And it was like a game changer.
Isn't that the toughest thing to do though? Like you freak it. Like I got to pay him and am I good enough? And all
you want
that
to keep
stuff.
him busy. But I remember I saw Lou Holt speak at a conference and he was talking about proactive, reactive. He always had an acronym WIN. What's important now?
Mm-hmm.
You got to win. And so is what's important now, meeting the appraiser? Is it doing this? Or is it being proactive with the client and asking for business? You got to do that.
I love it. It's funny that the asking for business is something that I've always been.
Right. Because we're not sales guys. We want to treat people good and do a good job.
Yeah.
And you think, but they might think Trevor's too busy. I don't want to bother him. He's got a family. He's got an office. He's doing a podcast, whatever. You don't know unless you ask. And they already like you anyway.
Well, it's so funny. That's one of my sayings with clients, and now my kids use it against me, is we know what the answer is if we don't ask. It's no.
Right.
So we might as well ask. And so softly.
I wouldn't have been married if I didn't ask.
Right. Yeah. Geez. I'm surprised you said yes. Yeah.
Me too.
both of us married up for sure, man. Asking for it and making sure that that's where I think making calls, when I just pick up the phone and I will literally come across a name on my list and my contacts. I'll be searching for someone else and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to them in a while. And I'll just pick up the phone and call, no agenda.
Right.
Hey, just want to say hi. We haven't talked in a while. What's going on? And invariably something good comes from the conversation. I mean, I've never had someone be like, screw off. If they don't like me, maybe they don't pick up the phone, right. But I don't know that. Most of the time it's like, oh my gosh, it's good to hear from you. How are things? Blah, blah, blah. And we just have a chat. And then that activity begets other activity. And then all of a sudden, next week or a month later, that person has introduced me to someone. And it's just little reminders that I'm in the business and that I try to provide value, and I try to provide value that's in line with what I earn. Right. And I think, stepping up the game of actually asking for the business, it's a tough hurdle for a lot of people. And especially if you're not a salesperson.
Right. One thing is doing the unexpected extras. Doesn't have to be a lot. You've done the Bright Box, our first closing we had because we were, you remember what you sent me?
I do.
And I'm like, oh man, we're going to be buddies.
Yeah. It was funny. So I was dating Beth at the time and I was visiting her in Huntington, and you and I closed our first deal. Yeah, I sent you flowers.
Jeez.
And I knew it was gonna go to your front desk. And so I wrote, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was something to the effect of thank you for making our first deal so gentle. Or thank you for making our first time so gentle. I tried to make it as it
was so awkward.
Yeah, I tried to do that and it worked. And I was like, this guy is going to love this. And that from then on, it's just, we just know that we can banter and go back and forth. And then
I called you and went to happy hour and had our first hang.
That was it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then literally it's been month after month. I mean, that is, I've had to kick a few back recently, but we always get right back on track. But that's the one standing thing. And it's because we think so similarly and because we approach life and business so similarly.
Even COVID, we had the lawn chairs on your front.
We had lawn chairs on front.
Yeah.
We did a little social distance happy hour. We made
good.
sure not to miss it. Yeah, that was, I think it was hot, but we still did it.
You're worth it.
Yeah, it was shady. We had cold beers. We were fine. Yeah. I think you actually brought some takeout too.
I did brought a little moto takeout.
A little moto, of course. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, half Diet Coke.
Yeah.
At the end.
Diet Coke
just a half after you paid the bill.
Brother.
Oh my gosh. So as a business leader, as someone who's growing your business, what are some of the things that you could tell someone who's out there looking to start a business or running a business, or young burgeoning loan officers or loan officers who are stagnated? Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you, for goal setting, for motivation, what's some of the stuff that you do to keep yourself after how many years? 17? Is that what you said?
15.
15 in
years,
this business.
16.
So, whatever.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a long time. What are some of the things that you can share as far as like what keeps you motivated? What goal setting that's reasonable? Like, what are some tenets of your business that have allowed you to continue to progress through it?
So I've always set goals from going 15 years back, even 20 years back. I remember my dad sent me goals of things that I wanted to do by the time I was 40, and I could not believe that I achieved a lot of them by maybe the time I was in my early 40s. And so I've always been a goal setter, short, mid, and long-term range, but I only set one or two in a certain area that I want to focus on. Right now, I got my 10,000 steps I'm working on right now. So I'm getting there. I'm getting close.
Nice.
But, first thing I would think, if you're a new loan officer or even a realtor, get your 100 people. And I don't mean 100 people on Facebook or Instagram. Name, email, mailing address, and a phone number. And that's what I started. And someone told me that when I got in the business. So I had 100 names that I could write a note to, that I could go see. So those mailers that I send out now that come out, I used to take each one and write a little note on them. Hey, Trev, your shirt looked awesome. It must be a medium.
Medium.
Medium. But so you got to get your 100 names, and it does. Social media doesn't count for that. You got to go see your clients. And so, big thing is set goals on how to win the day. Maybe it's 2 personal notes to people in your database. Maybe it's going to take someone to lunch. Maybe, we do the pop buys, which are taking clients, summertime, doing a pool noodle. Use your noodle. Call Trevor for your next home purchase. Just different fun stuff like that. So you got to do that. You got to see your clients. You got to set a few simple goals in different areas of your life, and then recalibrate at the end of the year. So November is a great time, I think, to set up your 2022 goals.
Yeah, it's so interesting that, what I like about it is you said, a few goals, right? You're not getting silly. You're not setting 20 goals.
Right.
You're not stretching yourself thin, and you're not going too far on them. And I think that's something that I find that people entering a business like ours, right, where your effort in and your work in directly benefits you financially, right? People tend to come into these businesses with goals that will set themselves up for failure, right? And what's interesting is I did that to myself this year. I set myself up with a goal that was like, when I look at it now, I was like, dude, I was talking about doubling the size of my business in a year. I grew my business by 20% last year. Like that's good.
Right.
That should be real good.
Right.
But in doing all my calculations, running through and talking to my advisors and my coaches, it was like, okay, here we go. We put this down, and I found myself hyper stressed. I found myself not enjoying the business.
Which I could tell, by the way.
Dude, right? Like, it's so funny. I'll show up for a happy hours, and like 10 minutes into it, you're like, bro, what's wrong? Right? And we always talk about it, right? Whatever the situation is, like I always lean on you for it. But like one of the things that I had done was set a goal that was outrageous. Like, okay, in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, I can probably get there by growing my business by 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 15, 20% a year. I'll get there.
Right.
Cool. But why do I have to get there right now? What I found is the weight of that and the stress of that, and knowing every day that I was failing became too much. And I think people will enter these businesses, or they'll be like, you see these young kids on Gary Vee or whatever. They're like, I want to make $1 million by the time I'm, grow 1 chin hair. And it's like, dude, don't do that. Like you're going to set yourself up for absolute failure. Boy. Like you're going to make $1 million by the time you can grow a gray beard. Right? Like whatever, make it reasonable. And so the second I realized that my goals were actually stifling me, I toned it way down. I cut it like almost in half again, not to where I was this year, but like this year plus another like 15%. No, it's this year plus another 20. And then I was like, it still doesn't feel right. Cut it a little more. And now my goal is somewhere that it's like, dude, now I can look and realize I'm not that far off pace. And if I miss it, I'll still be good. I'll be okay. And I won't feel like a colossal failure versus setting myself up for these enormous goals. Like, going and saying I'm going to, date a supermodel or whatever and being overweight. It's like, dude, you're just going to keep failing. Like set yourself up with reasonable, easily attainable, trackable goals. And I love what you said about just having a couple. It doesn't need to be this multifaceted.
Right. So
crazy.
one financial, one business, one personal, one health, one fun for me. And then you could have like a couple lifelong goals. But, you know, my bag's in the other room. I have my goals from 2002 in there I carry around.
No way.
Yep. I could go get them and pull them out. And
what did it like just to remind you or what?
Just to remind what it was like, what I was trying to do back then. One was, you know, paying off some credit card debt. It was saving $50 a month into a savings account. Just little small steps that over the years, you know, finally flipped into where now I don't have to pay off credit card debt because I paid it off because I set small goals of what I wanted to do. It wasn't, you know, try to take my business and 10x it. That was absurd. My goal was this year I'm going to hire an assistant or a team lead or whatever it is, you know, someone for the office. This time I'm going to try to, you know, for 30 days, walk 10,000 steps a day. Because, you know, what you did a good job, by the way, with your health.
Oh, thanks. Man.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you.
See, I lean on you. You're very disciplined.
I mean, that one, I just found something that worked for me.
But you set one little goal.
I set one goal. And I think that's it too, right? You're tapping into like, what was my motivation for the goal? Right? So goals are great to have, but if your goals if you're standing on a hollow platform, if your goals are associated with something that don't really have meaning to your life, it's not going to work out.
Right.
My goal with losing weight was longevity. I had two kids. I just had Marty. I was carrying way too much weight. Like, you know, putting him to bed at night, getting up out of a chair was straining. And I was like, dude, this kid's going to grow up and I'm going to be throwing, you know, football with him. I'm going to be chasing him around. I'm going to be rolling around on the ground with him. And I was like, something's got to give.
Yeah. It's inspiring, man. You did an awesome job.
Thanks,
so
man.
I just want you to know, does not go unnoticed.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I know you razz me every time I see you.
I know.
Yeah, look at that shirt. What did you say the last time we were motoring? You're like, what are you, size 30 in the waist? I was like,
I'm going to borrow your pants.
Yeah, right. No, I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I think setting reasonable goals and setting goals are like, for me with my health, that's another good, you know, goal metric. I don't step on the scale. The only time I step on the scale is when Beth is like, go weigh yourself. I think you're skinny.
Oh, that's cool.
Right. And so like every 2 or 3 months, I'll step on there because for me, it's not about what the scale says. It's about how I feel.
Right.
How am I feeling? And when I can roll around on the ground and I can go outside and throw the football with Haley, who's playing flag football, and go set her up for some drills and get out there and sweat it out. And then I come inside and I run around and I chase Marty. Like this last weekend, I did that. And Beth was like, you know, she's like, I was talking to the girls about how different this weekend would have played out if we hadn't lost weight. I wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been a ton of work.
Do you set goals with your family too, like Beth and the kids at all? Like, do they, you know, maybe get a good grade in this class, or do you guys do that?
You know, I think it's more soft than that. They're more micro goals. They're more like, hey, when you get home from school, let's set up the cones and do 10 suicides.
Oh, that's cool.
Like by the time Pops is home, 10 suicides
short-term
done. Short-term goals.
Yeah.
And right. And then they build on the success. And it was like, yesterday it was like, okay, I did 6 right when I got home. And then I jumped in the pool. And then a little later I did 4 more. Cool. You did 10. Tomorrow I'll try to do 7 and 3.
There's something about checking something off the list. I love it.
And you know what? Kids like really crave that structure. You know, you think they don't, but they do. And like setting little goals for everyone is important. But like our goals are typically soft. You know, our kids get good grades. They're well behaved. They do the things so we don't have to like.
They have good parents, Trevor.
Oh, thank you very much. I think they have a good mother. I think that's the most important thing. But I think setting and having the follow through, right? And the follow through, I think, is as tough as with anything. When you set personal goals, when you set business goals, when you help your kids set goals, following through with the goal and following through with the mechanism that if you don't meet that goal, what's the consequence? And I think raising kids to realize that there are consequences in life, you can train them and talk to them about that. And you can tell them, hey, there are consequences. You can show them consequences for their actions. But oftentimes they just got to figure it out.
Right.
It's like, okay, you didn't do much to prepare for this thing. And now you're going to go and try out for the thing. And like, okay, how'd it go? And it's like tears in the eyes. It's like, okay, what do you think you could have done different? Well, I could have practiced. Like, yeah, Coulda.
I was just thinking, so every time we meet, one good thing always comes out of it, right? We always say something good comes out of it. So you know what's coming out of this?
What?
Next time we get together, we're going to write a goal in each area of our life for both of us.
Let's do it, man.
Next happy hour.
And that'll, we'll be approaching, would you say November?
Yeah, like October, November.
Yeah,
September,
we'll get together
September.
in like 2 weeks, but we'll set goals, and then as we're
Vince
approaching
might look at us all weird, but whatever.
He always does. He looks at you more weird. It's funny. Both of us tend to wear our pink shirts in there, and he's just like, gives us the
great. I love it.
Yeah, we do it on purpose. So you got to get that guy riled up. What else, man? What is there anything else that you're leading into? Anything else that you think is super important for consumers to know? Is there anything in your business right now that you're like, people need to know this?
Well, people need to know that, obviously interest rates are still very, very low. And I heard a statistic, there's something like 4 to 7 million people that can still benefit from refinancing.
Whoa.
But a lot of people don't realize that if they bought a home and had a really good interest rate and they do have mortgage insurance, they could actually call their loan servicer and apply to have the mortgage insurance removed and not even have to refinance, because refinancing costs money. You have appraisal, unless you get a waiver, you have a mortgage, you have title. Mm-hmm. But if you have a good rate, just call the mortgage bank that your loan is with and see if they'll get rid of mortgage insurance. And that might save you $100, $200, $75 a month.
I love it. In this marketplace of rapid appreciation,
mm-hmm.
it's if you put 3, 5, 10% down,
right,
you could get there really quickly with the way your home is
super quick. And then the other thing too is if you're planning on keeping your house a while, is if you refinance into a 15 or 20 year and you do the math, you can save $100,000 up to $200,000 over the life of a loan. That's big boy money.
That's big boy money, and that's money that can go to retirement and other things. Man, that's amazing. That's one of the things that you and I have always focused on. Like when you helped me to get my first, when I bought my house with Beth, it wasn't my first house that I bought, but when Beth and I bought the house, like you and I sat down and worked through my finances and figured things out and what's the best approach. And like that consultative, that true wanting the best for me is something that you apply to everyone. And I see it time and time and time again. And so I think it's important to, know that like these little hacks, right?
Yep.
Call your servicer. You may not even need to do a refi to save a couple $100 a month.
But you call your bank, they're not going to tell you that.
No.
They're going to tell you to refinance because they want to make more money.
They want to make more money. And yeah, so.
Not that we don't want to make money. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, everyone wants to make money.
But if it makes sense, then we'll do it. If it doesn't, then we won't.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you. And people appreciate that.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, hey, look, I think this is a good time for us to wrap.
So soon?
Yeah, so soon. It's been so soon. You and I always have great conversations, and this is one of the purposes of the Halpern Residential, the What's Halperning podcast, is to bring the conversations that I get to have with people to anyone who wants to listen. And, having you come in here and having one of my best friends be able to sit down and talk a little philosophy and talk about your business has been a ton of fun. So thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. And I always said, if I ever got married again to the same woman, you'd be in my wedding.
Yeah, well, different woman, I'd be there too, but it's not happening.
No, let's not
I know
say
we
that,
always say that. Like literally, if we had to press the reset button on our weddings, you and I would be groomsmen for sure.
Yeah, but keep up the good work. I know every time I talk to your clients, they love you. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming.
You got it.